Hey, what's up, guys? This video is going to be a little bit longer. It is on game mode settings. A lot of you guys have been asking for calibrations and settings. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Those of you that have been with me for a while know I'm not a huge fan of doing settings videos simply because they're so subjective. What is pleasing to my eye might not be pleasing to yours. And I don't use the word calibration simply because I'm not a professional calibrator. I'm just a guy in his basement, just like a lot of you guys and girls are. So there are no machines hooked up to this. There isn't any calibration equipment. It's just what is pleasing to my eye. The reason why this video is going to be a little bit longer, it's in 1080p, just so I can give you a longer description of settings. I'll do non-HDR and HDR settings. That way you guys have both. And please use these as a baseline. And then give me your feedback on what you guys use in the comments. So we'll start off with Doom. This is Doom. It's native 4K. This is on PC, and it's maxed. So what I wanted to show you about Doom is that it's got gorgeous color. It is very bright, very vibrant game. The blooming you see is actually from my camera. It's not visible here. But what I'm trying to show you guys is the depth, how deep the picture can be, and how bright the image is without having to go crazy and max our brightness. So let's go into the settings. Picture adjust. We are in game mode. You guys know that what I like about the Sony is that you can actually venture outside of game mode, and I know that that is ludicrous for a lot of you because everyone is really hung up on input lag. If you have a game that's very cinematic, you can enable motion. It'll give you that 240 hertz monitor feel by adding a little bit of motion. Don't go crazy, but it can make the cinematic, the experience more cinematic. So these are actually game mode settings, so least amount of lag, and they're pretty basic. So we're going to start off with game mode. Brightness is the backlight in the Sony line. Some of you were looking at that and saying, wait, that's way too low. So why do I have it so low? So while all of us are pretty addicted to peak brightness, and you keep hearing that brightness, 1400 nits, 1000 nits, the OLED only gets 600 nits. We get really hung up on that, guys. And the fact of the matter is, I've owned Samsungs from last year, the KS9000, the 9800, that they did 1400 nits. They were as bright as the 930 and the Z9D, and most of the time I turned down the backlight. Simply because as good as the brightness is, and as high as it is, when it's in torch mode like that, you lose detail. So for me, and this is just my opinion, is I turn the brightness down on those Samsungs, and here it's the backlight and brightness. I turn this down to 20. You can go even lower, but what I like is that you can see how bright the lava is. It doesn't have to, burn your eyes, because the brighter you go, some of the detail gets lost. So just keep that in mind, guys. If the picture looks washed out to you, try backing down the brightness or the backlight. The color saturation, I have it at 55. I like it as high as 65. I tend not to go higher than that. Advanced settings, as you guys saw, the backlight is to 20. Contrast for me is down to 90. I don't like my image washed out. You're going to hear that a lot in this video, is the washing out and depth of the image. So I like my contrast a little bit lower. Gamma, I have it -1. I sometimes go as much as -2 or even -3. The idea, like I said, guys, is to not crush blacks. There is no black crush or anything. I just want the image to be deep and realistic. I don't need it to be so cartoony unless I'm playing that type of game. So for my normal settings, for non-HDR, I keep it at -1. Black level, which is interesting because that's actually pretty much brightness. So you're going to be tempted to also push this up, and all it really does is wash out the image even further. So I would leave that there or even go down with it. Black adjust, I do like black adjust on high. I like its effect. I like how it details the image. Advanced contrast, I tend to keep off. Now this one is tempting. A lot of people love dynamic contrast. They have that on the Samsung. They have it on every display. And sometimes I like it too. It does. This is native 4K, so it actually does create a sharper image. So if you have very high level content, something that is native 4K with high aliasing, or high anti-aliasing I should say, then play with it. You might like its effect. It does give it a bit of a pop, but if you want the image to look more natural and what it's supposed to be, then I would keep it off, but toy with it. Try it on low. Some people love to have dynamic contrast and enhanced contrast enhancer on. Whatever you guys like. I think if you have a sharper image, something you really want to see pop, you can use it, but do know that on lower content, it does create some artifacting and can make the image look grainy. Auto local dimming, I always keep on high. That's the backlight. I do not want that anything other than high. Extended dynamic range, I like on high as well. Extended dynamic range and backlight get adjusted to max when HDR is enabled, just so you guys know. I'll show that to you in a little bit. Down to color, we've already said I like it at 55 as far as my saturation. Hue, I keep at 0. Expert 1 for me, excuse me, is a little bit of a warmer color temperature. Now, advanced color temperature, if you go into this, I have my green down to 3 and my blue gain down to 8. Now, I got these color settings off the AVS video for the calibration that they use. They feel that the Sony is very blue in color, so taking away a little bit of that blue. Giving them credit, I'm not Joe Color. Like I said, I don't mess with these too much, but that's what I use. Give them a shot, see if you guys like them. Live color is very interesting, and sometimes I love the way it looks. Other times it's just too cartoony, it's too unnatural, but other times, again, in animation, things like that, it's great. But here's a level that's pretty realistic looking, and then once we put it on, look how much it changes the image. Now, some of you guys might really like that, and in some games I really like it, which is why, like we talked about, this is very, very subjective. For this video, I'm keeping it off. Though it makes the image look a little bit more flat, it's more realistic. So, play with that. For me, I keep it off most of the time. And to clarity. Clarity is interesting. Sharpness, I never have it that high. So I'm going to back sharpness down to... Now there's another one, sharpness. If you have high quality 4K content with very sharp edges, you really don't need sharpness to be very high. So, you know, for me, I'll keep it at 15 to 20. But it's another part of the settings that people tend to ramp up, thinking it's going to create what it says. It actually does create artifacting and can create a pretty grainy picture. Auto creation, which is an interesting setting, which can help add some extra enhancement to the image. I don't love its effect. Some people swear by it. For something like this, it's not doing anything for the PC. I'll show you on the next video. I tend to keep it on auto or off. On lower content that is a little bit muddy, you can go down to manual, go to 4K resolution, and pump this all the way up. It will sharpen the edges for you, but just be mindful, like dynamic contrast and advanced contrast enhancer, it does create some artifacting. So just be wary of that. Going back up, I'll turn that off or on auto. And all these other settings are grayed out. Smooth gradation, I tend to leave on high. Motion. Since we are in game mode, motion is not enabled. So motion flow is off. Now, for those of you that have a Sony 900E or had any motion issues, the way to fix that is come down into clearness and use black insertion. It does darken the image a little bit, but it will help you with blurring if you're having games that blur on you. So if you're watching this and you have a Sony 900E, that is how you take care of that. It darkens the image, but it helps with motion immensely. But for those of us that don't have those issues, don't touch it. So motion is going to be off. Video options, I keep everything here on auto. I have my color space and everything set in the NVIDIA control panel, so I leave everything to auto here. And those are my non-HDR settings. And I'll be right back with the HDR settings. Okay guys, now we're back with Gears of War 4 on the Xbox One X. And this is an HDR enabled title. So as we go right back into the game mode, you'll tell that you're in HDR simply because the HDR moniker in the corner. And as you can tell, These are the same settings I had on the other PC title, and brightness is at max. Color I still have at 55. Coming down to advanced settings. Contrast is at 90. The difference I do with HDR is I have gamma at 0. You can actually go up one if you like, if you want to see this image pop. A lot of you are finding that HDR actually dims the picture. And you wouldn't be wrong. In some of the material, sometimes in film, HDR actually does dim the picture, which is why, you know, again, in my opinion, they force you to put everything up to max settings. So this is where you can't be afraid to add some of those features. Black level to me is still at 50. Black adjust I still have it high. Advanced contrast I still keep off. Again, that's something you guys can play with. Auto local dimming. Some of you guys that are seeing clouding or seeing some edgelit bleed, please make sure that your local dimming is on high. Extended dynamic range is also maxed due to HDR. Back to color, I'm still at 55. My color temperature is still expert 2. I still have the -3, -8. Now back to clarity. With the Xbox One X, even though it's a very clean image, I will put this on auto, and it will create a little bit of a sharper image. Again, like I said, if you guys want to go to manual, come down, and then as you can see with the lines, find a port of reference for you guys when you're watching or in your own displays, and then move it up and see, you know, what looks good to you, and then just focus on a point of interest, and then you'll find what's comfortable for you and what works. But guys, on games that you see a little bit of shimmering, things like that, try messing around with auto creation. It's an excellent feature, or reality creation, I'm sorry. It's a great feature to have. Just don't go too crazy with it because it will create artifacting. But like the dynamic enhancers, you might love it. Now everything's grayed out. Smooth gradation is on high. Back to motion. Motion flow is off. Video options, I have everything on auto. Now you can mess around with the color space. A lot of people do think they do like the BT 2020, but I have it on auto, so it's exactly the same. On the PC, if you want to see that, you have to go into the control panel settings and change it there. But that's pretty much it, guys, as far as the settings that I use. Like I said before in the previous settings, if you feel like your image is washed out, don't feel the need to ramp everything up to brightness, max brightness. Even those of you with really high luminance or nits, 900E, things of that nature, unless it's HDR, back it off a little bit and you'll be surprised at how nice the image actually looks. And that's the video, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you as always, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.